All right, so we are recording and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so thank you for joining me today for an overview of the GW blog service. We are going to be taking a look at, obviously what the service is in general, who can use it, what the different design options are, what website accessibility is, and then we'll actually go ahead and log into the back end of a GW Blogs website to talk about the difference between a post and a page. We'll take a look at plugins and widgets and what they do and how to actually enable them and use them. We'll talk about setting up your home page and also switching between the different themes, and then we'll talk a little bit also about the technical support options for this service at the university. So starting with what is GW Blogs, it is a self-serve service at the university. It's WordPress-based content management system, and that just means that as site owners, you only have to concern yourself with the content of your system to be able to manage your website. You don't have to know about design or coding. You just need to be able to provide any copy and images that you want in your website. It is a hosted product, and the product is called Campus Press, which is owned by a vendor called EduPlugs, and we pay for access to the product. Because of that, there are limitations on what can be customized in the system, and these limitations are based both on the policies of EduBlogs as well as GW's policies as well. And then just as an aside, despite the service's name, GW Blogs, you can use the system to create traditional websites as well. You're not limited to only creating a blog. If you want just a website with static web pages, you can absolutely do that. So who can use GW Blogs? Academic and administrative offices can use it, as well as any current faculty, staff, or student. Your access to the service is based on your GW NetID single sign-on, so the portion before your email address, that's going to be your username. For instance, my NetID is in AskYou, so that would be my username, and then whatever you use to log into your email is what you will use to log into the system. Once you log into the system with your NetID, a personal site is automatically created for you at blogs.gwu.edu/whatever your NetID is. So in my case, it would be blogs.gwu.edu/inaskyu. And also once you have logged in with your NetID, you have an existing account on the platform. And existing users can be granted access to any other GW blog website in the service. So if this is a website being stood up for an academic or administrative office or unit or some other sort of organization and you need multiple people to have access, each individual person needs to log in with their NetID first, which again will create that personal site for them, but then their account isn't accessible for you to add them as an administrator or an editor or an author or whatever the use case may be on this other website. That first step that they have to take is to log in with their GW NetID. So at this time, due to security protocols, organizational NetID accounts are not allowed to just automatically be used in the system. You do need to receive prior approval first from my office. So if you do need an org NetID account, so for instance, biology@gwu.edu for the biology department, you need to email onlinestrategy@gwu.edu first. Our team will take a look at the details of your request as to why you need to have that organizational NetID have access, and then we will approve or deny that request as appropriate. Some of the reasons why we don't approve those requests is because those are shared accounts, so multiple people will have the credentials, and we just don't frequently change those credentials, and so they're not considered secure accounts by the university, so we try to limit their access to university-wide systems as much as possible for that reason. And then also at this time, alumni accounts are not supported at all. So still talking about who can use GW Blogs, because there are two types of basically groups that can use the system, offices or individuals. There are also two types of sites available to accommodate the needs. So the official sites are not for individuals' websites, and that includes faculty, CV, or profile websites. If you need a personal site just for you yourself, regardless of if it's a website you're standing up as a faculty member or as a staff member and you intend to talk about your role and affiliation at the university, you need to use the unofficial site type, which is designed for sites for individuals. Official sites should always represent official university business, and because of that, the footer will display the GW logo and institutional links, whereas unofficial sites are not required to represent official university business, and because of that, the footer actually displays a disclaimer instead. So the one caveat with the unofficial site designation for faculty is that if you would like to have the ability to display the GW logo and institutional links in your footer, we can give you access to those templates, but you do have to request them from our team, which again, the email address is onlinestrategy@gwu.edu. But the process for obtaining a website for a faculty member, you do need to use the unofficial process, which is again just logging in with your GW Net ID. Okay. So a question that we often get is, should I use GW Blogs or GW Drupal? And if you are a faculty or staff member, you may be aware of the GW Drupal system at the university. GW Drupal is the university's official platform for official administrative websites at the university, and it has been for since 2012. GW Blogs is not intended to replace a GW Drupal website, an existing GW Drupal website. They can be used to supplement a GW Drupal website, and they're really good for highly targeted information such as a conference, a lab, or an institute. And so as the service has been around for a couple years now, meaning GW Blogs, we are working very closely with the different schools and colleges and their needs for the service. So as I mentioned before, labs and institutes are great candidates to use GW Blogs, and some of the schools are actually moving towards requiring their centers and institutes to actually use the GW Blogs platform. So if you are in that position and you're not sure which service to use, go ahead and put in a GW Blogs official website request. Our team reviews those on a weekly basis, and if it falls under a school or a department, an academic unit, we automatically will reach out to the central point of contact for that school or academic unit to say, hey, are you aware this request came through or is pending? How do you want us to handle it? And you can also, reach out to that central person on your own before putting in the request as well. That way you already have those ducks in a row, and we'll know off the bat how we need to move forward with that request. So what are my design options? There are 3 semi-customized themes available at this time. They are the Tiny Framework, Ward, and White theme, and all 3 of them use the GW Blue color palette, which is the main GW Blue color, as well as the cyan, green, and yellow. All 3 themes are also fully responsive for mobile devices and have out-of-the-box accessibility-ready design, meaning that somebody who may not be able to look at the website on a desktop, maybe they need to use a screenwriter, maybe they can only use some sort of mobile device, or maybe they can look at it on a desktop, but they have to use keyboard-only navigation to tab through the site. The website is already coded to work for them. The template is already coded to work for them, so it's accessible out of the box. All websites have access to the same plugins, which extend the site's functionality, as well as widgets, which customize the layout of the pages. And then finally, all 3 themes have a homepage that can support either a feed of your recent blog post or a static message from a subpage if you don't want to be using the blog functionality in the website. Still talking about design, we get a lot of questions about photos and graphics. Again, this is a self-serve service at the university, so at the end of the day, any graphics or photos, it is your responsibility to provide those. However, you do have the option of working with Marketing Creative Services to request existing photos from the University Photographer's Library. You just need to put in a request, and this does link over to that request form. So you guys will have access to it when I send the presentation and the follow-up email. You just need to let them know the types of photos that you're looking for. They'll curate a small collection for you and send you a link so that you can then download those photos. If you need a graphic, which is essentially anything that needs to be photoshopped in some way, maybe you need to have some wording put on top of a photo, something along those lines, you have the option of submitting a design project request, and a project manager will reach out to you for more information about your request, next steps, and with billable information, which at this time I believe is $65 an hour, and it's billed in increments of 15 minutes. So if you request something that takes 15 minutes, you only have to pay for 15 minutes. You don't have to pay for the full hour. And for any academic and administrative units that need a logo, that must come from Marketing Creative Services. So you do need to submit that design project request, and that's because there are constructs for the different types of logos at the university. So we don't want anybody going out and just creating one ad hoc, or kind of going out and contracting somebody to design one for you. There are rules and specifications for how logos at the university need to be designed, from everything from the font color and the specific font face, clear space around the different elements, things along those lines. And so Marketing Creative Services does create those logos for you at no charge. So please be sure to put in your design project request, and MCS will create that logo for you at no charge. So making your website accessible, what does this mean? It means that making sure your website works for anyone regardless of the device that they're using to get to your website or what browser they're using as well. Websites, again, are processed differently for people using different types of devices, and specifically assistive devices, such as screen readers. And then, again, users with mobility challenges may need to tab through your website using the keyboard only, and they won't have access to a mouse. So you need to make sure that as they're tabbing through your site, things are going in an intuitive order, and that there's really no content hidden from them because they couldn't get to it with their keyboard. And so what that means for you guys as site owners is always making sure to provide descriptive alt tags on all of your images. It's also, alt tags is also referred to as alternative text. If you have a photo or a graphic or any kind of image on your site, you need to be providing descriptive alt tags on those photos or those graphics so that if somebody can't see that photo for some reason, they can still understand what's going on in it. So if you have a photo of a group of students studying in a library, your alt text should be students studying in a library. If you have a photo of a professor lecturing to students, that should be the alt text on that photo, professor lecturing to students. What you want to avoid doing is putting the photo's file name, because that's not really going to give them the information that they need about what's going on. You also don't want to just put photo because that tells them absolutely nothing. So again, being descriptive with the alt text on all of your graphics and images. And if the graphic has text on it, you need to include all of the text that's in that graphic. So that's why we always say don't use posters in PDFs as images on your website, because whatever text you have in that poster or PDF, it needs to be in that alt text field, and that becomes unwieldy and unuseful very quickly, and your website's no longer accessible for that person. So if you're creating a page for an event, and you've got this beautiful poster that was designed, and you slap that poster on the page and say, here's all the information everybody needs, and plus it's pretty. The problem is if somebody can't see that poster, they can't get any of that information. So you actually want to put the pertinent information for your event within the text of your web page, and then really allow that image to be decorative and put some descriptive alt text on about what's going on in that graphic, as opposed to using the poster as a whole. You also, as a site owner, want to make sure that you're using your subheads to define your content topics and not using it for visual appeal or prominence. And what I mean by this, and you'll see this when we get into the back end of the site, is if you're creating a subhead on your page, there are specific styles that you can apply to the text to indicate that it's a subhead. When you apply that style, it also puts HTML tags around that text, and your screen readers will pick that up. And if somebody's using a screen reading device to navigate through your website, and they say, there's a specific thing I'm looking for, so just read me the subheads on the page, don't read me any of the paragraph text. When they get to anything that you've tagged as a heading, it's going to get read aloud for them. So if you have used your subheads to make a whole paragraph stand out for prominence because you really want to make sure somebody visually sees it and it's really just prominent on the page, that person using a screen reader is now forced to listen to that entire paragraph be read aloud to them, and that's very inaccessible for them. And if this is an administrative or academic unit at the university, that could be bad for the university, as well as being in compliance with accessibility standards. So you really just want to be using those subheads to define the topics on your page, never for visual appeal, never for prominence. You also want to avoid using too many moving elements. This can be difficult for users who maybe have visual or cognitive challenges. to have a lot of things moving across the screen. If you have, like one thing that rotates that's not that bad, but you just want to be careful to not overdo it, have too many things within there. For instance, the most common is like rotating sliders for like a header or maybe something in the sidebar. You don't want to, have like 12 different things going through that rotation. It can be very inaccessible for your users in that case. And then you don't want to have multiple things moving all over the page as well. It can be very difficult for some of your users to be able to absorb the information on your website because there's too many distracting elements moving around. You also want to avoid using colors that have low contrast against their background. So again, we have semi-customized all of these sites so that they're using GW's color palette, which have been tested for accessibility to make sure that there's enough contrast. But if you go in there and you customize on top of what we've already put in there, and you start using things that don't have enough contrast between them, somebody with color blindness issues, or obviously, or even other issues, they could have trouble reading your website. If you're using let's say a gray background of one color value and then a different gray of a different color value, they actually might not be able to read that website at all. So you want to make sure that you are avoiding colors that have low contrast against each other so that excuse me, your users can still read what's going on your website. And those are just a handful of things that you can do to make sure that your website is accessible for all of your users. There are many more things that you can do, and I'll be sure to share those tips with you in the follow-up resources. But these are the biggies that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to. All right, so we are going to go ahead and actually log into the back of a site. If you have ever used GW Blogs before, you should be able to go ahead and log in. If you have not, you just want to go ahead and go to blogs.gw.edu. There will be a login link in the navigation in the upper right. You'll want to click on that and then follow the steps to log in with your NetID username and password. So I'm going to do that now, and you guys can follow along with me. Let me find browser, and I will share this screen with you all. Okay. So you should be able to see my screen right now, and I'm going to go ahead and get logged in. You want to use the blue Use NetID button, and then go ahead and log in with your NetID. Now, I'm going to be using a organizational NetID account, which we use as a testing account, and we do have prior approval to use it. But again, you want to use your personal NetID username and password to log into your personal account. If this is your first time ever logging in, you may be presented with a screen basically asking you to accept the terms of use. So definitely make sure you do that. And then once you get logged in, you should see one of two things. You'll either be taken to the home page for GW Blogs, and in that case, you'll just hover in the top right where it says My Site, and then go to whatever your personal site is. It'll have most likely your NetID as the site name. So you'll just go to and click on that site, and that will bring you to your dashboard, which is what we're looking at here. So just a quick walkthrough of the dashboard. Up at the top, you're always going to have this black bar that's visible whenever you're logged in. And then whenever you're on your dashboard in particular, you're always going to have these list of links running down the left side of the screen. And these are the different sections for managing your website that you can get into. And the first two that we're going to take a look at is the Post section and the Pages section. And we're going to talk about the difference between the two. So WordPress was created originally to be a blog website platform. And so posts are one of those things that were originally a part of its design. You are not required to use them, obviously, if you don't want to have a blog role. But what separates a blog post page from a regular website page is the date. When you create a blog post, that blog post is dated, and that will allow it to be included in a blog feed based off of that publication date. As the date for the blog post gets older, it will drop lower down on the list, and newer blog posts will be at the top of the list. So that's what makes a blog post that's like the intrinsic thing that makes a blog post different from a website page. Other things that you can do with blog post pages that you cannot do on regular website pages is have comments on a blog post page so that people can engage in conversation. You can also assign categories and tags to blog post page so that people can filter the posts that they see based off of those categories and tags. You can't do any of those things with a website page. It's just a standalone static page that basically just sits there and does not dynamically move based off of the date that it was created in any manner. And you also cannot assign categories or tags to it, nor can you have comments on the blog post page. So I'm going to go ahead and actually create a website page now. Feel free to follow along. And I'm just going to call this about online strategy. I'm going to skip over this big purple button for now. We'll talk about that later on when we talk about plugins and widgets. But one of the things you may have noticed is that once I created the title for my page, this little permalink showed up down here that says about online strategy. This will automatically get generated once you have a title for your blog post page or your website page. And it's always going to include the first part of your website, so it's blogs.gw.edu/netid/ and then the page title name. If I wanted to customize this to be something different or something shorter, I can click that edit button, but it's only going to allow me to edit the portion that's being affected by the page title. You cannot change the domain base, which is the blogs.gw.edu, nor can you change that part that's pulling from your NetID. You can only change the part that's tied to whatever your page title is. So I can click OK if I want to keep it, or cancel if I'm okay with what it does have, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and click. Scrolling down, you get your text editor, and yours probably looks a little bit different. I learned probably just a couple of months ago that this last icon in here, if you click on that, it gives you a few more formatting options. So I always like to have that expanded now whenever I'm working in the back end. But you can see here that you get some basic formatting options that are pretty similar to word processing programs, so that you can go ahead and format your website. So I'm going to pull in some placeholder text, some lorem ipsum basically, and we'll grab that and we'll just paste that in here. So that's basically all you need to do as far as getting your text in here. You can write it obviously freehand within the text editor, but most of us will have text provided to us in some format, whether it be a Word document, a PDF, maybe even from another website, and so you can just copy and paste that text into the text editor from there. Now you can see that this text is bigger than the rest of this text down here because I pasted it from somewhere else where they've already designated this as a subhead. It's already wrapped. It's already automatically getting that heading 2 style. And in the source code, if we were to look at that, we'll see that that's wrapping it in HTML tags for the subhead 2. So this again goes back to that accessibility. Now somebody's using a screen reader and also search engine crawlers. They'll see that this text is designated as a subhead, and it will get weighted just a little bit differently than the rest of the paragraph text will for the search engine crawlers. And then for somebody with an assistive device who just wants to hear the subheads on the page, they'll hear this, they'll hear what is lorem ipsum without having to hear the rest of this paragraph, so that they can immediately find the thing that it is that they're looking for. Once you have your text in there, you are free to go ahead and work on publishing your page. I do want to point out that down here in the right sidebar at the very bottom, there is a set featured image option. So if you want to have an image associated with your page, you can do that. You will have images that have already been uploaded displaying first under the Media Library tab. If you've never uploaded an image, you can click on that Upload Files tab and then go through the process of uploading something from your hard drive. I'm going to go ahead and use this one that I have. It will give you some details over here about the image that you've selected, so I can see the size of it here, and I can make any edits if I would like to, as far as cropping it and resizing it, things along those lines. It's pretty big, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there as big as it is. Did not mean to close that. And you will also get a few fields down here that you can pay attention to as well. The most important one is that alt text field that we talked about before. So again, describe what's going on in the image. In this case, my alt text says GW George mascot in front of a bonfire. And that's really all that I need to put in there, because if somebody can't see that image, they still know what's going on in it. You don't have to get super detailed with it. You don't have to name names if you have individuals in there. You can really just be kind of general, just letting them know what's going on in the photo. If it's a headshot of a specific person, in that case you can just put that person's name. That's entirely acceptable. But if there's not a real reason to have that person's specific name in there, you don't have to go into that kind of detail. There's also a field down here that you can use, but you want to be careful with it. You don't want to abuse it. With accessibility, if an image is purely decorative and it's not providing important information about whatever is on the page, you can indicate that it's decorative. And in that case, search engine crawlers and accessibility devices will skip over it, because they'll say, you know what, this really isn't important for this person to know. We're just going to keep moving along. Again, don't abuse this, and I would actually recommend not using it at all unless you absolutely have to for some reason, just because you don't want to actually be creating a situation where there is something important in that photo and you're doing a disservice to your users by not giving them access to it as well, by not providing that alt text to them. So once you have your image set and you've put your alt text in, go ahead and select Set Featured Image. You'll get a little preview of it down there. And then you can go back up to the top where you got your publishing option. So you can publish immediately, which is the default option, by clicking the Publish button. You also have the option of editing this status section, and you can say, you know what, this page is in a different sort of state. It's not really ready for prime time, so maybe it's just in a draft, or maybe it's pending review or something along those lines. And you pick the state that you want, you say OK, and then you just click the Save as Draft button. And if you do that, the page is not accessible to your public website visitors. It's only accessible to people who have back-end access to the site. However, I think that this page is fine, so I'm going to go ahead and actually just publish it immediately. Once you click that Save button, there's a confirmation that will show up right here, and it says that the page is published, and it gives you a link to view the page. It doesn't automatically take you to that published page, which threw me off for a while, but once you click on that link, then you can see what your page looks like. So we've got my page title there, that subhead 2 that was designated within the text, as well as my paragraph text, and then obviously up here at the top we've got the image that I selected. I do want to let you guys know we have a small bug going on right now with this theme, where whatever featured image you select is always going to show up here, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is because this theme does allow you to set a header banner across your site that's supposed to display across all pages, but right now, because of the bug with our template, if you have a featured image on a page, that will actually replace the header banner that you may have designated for your site. So just be aware of that. It's something that we are working with our front-end developer to actually correct, hopefully within the next couple of months. So yeah, you can see my pages here. There's a link here that says go ahead and edit this page, but it's really just a static standalone page that exists. Now, if this was a blog post, which I'm going to create now by going to this shortcut menu at the top, remember, as I said before, all of your links will always display. You'll always have this black admin bar at the top with some quick shortcut links for you. So I'm going to hover over that new link, click on New Post, and you will see that the back end for creating a post is pretty similar to what you see whenever you're creating a page. So I'm going to call this my Blogs 101 blog post. Again, skipping over that Divi Builder button until we get into plugins and widgets, and then I'm going to go down here to my text editor, and this time I'm going to generate some actual lorem ipsum text. Copy that and paste it into my text editor. Now, if I wanted to have subheads this time that haven't been previously designated for me, all I need to do is highlight that text, and we can see here with my paragraph formats, it's indicating that it's just regular paragraph text, but I'm going to go ahead and go in here and say, nope, this needs to be a subhead 2. And the reason why I started with 2 instead of 1, heading 1 really should always be the page titles, and you don't want to have 2 page titles essentially in there, so that's why I started with 2 instead. You can have multiple H2s if you would like, if all of those subheads are kind of at the same level of importance. If you need to have sort of degrees of subheads, that's when you want to start going and using the other numbers. You just want to make sure that you're going in numerical order and that you're not really jumping around. So you don't want to like go from a 2 to a 5 and then back to a 3 and then maybe a 4. You really should go from 2 to 3 to 4, or even start with 3 and then go 4, 5, so on and so forth. If you would like to have images within your text, just place your cursor wherever you want your image to be. You'll click on this Add Media button. I do have some other buttons here because of plugins I have turned on, and we'll get to those in a moment. But you'll want to click on the Add Media button. And just like we did with the featured image, any images you already have uploaded to your site will be visible here. Or you can go through the process of uploading one from your hard drive. Now, I do actually want to point out this CompFight one. This is a plugin that you have access to on your site, and what it provides to you is access to freely available images on the web. We do not want you guys going out and going to Google Images, finding a picture, downloading it, and then using it on your website, because that is actually stealing, and we don't want you stealing somebody else's pictures. What CompFight does is it has already scoured the internet for you and curated a collection of images that have been designated free to use by the image provider. So all you need to do in that case is type in a keyword search essentially for the type of photo that you're looking for, and you can click enter or you can click search. It just takes a minute, and it will then go ahead and give you a collection that matches the keyword search that you put in, or at least tries to match it as closely as possible, because I saw some things in there where I don't know why that came up for cupcake. But let's say I like this image. I can then say I want the small, medium, large, or full resolution version of that photo. So I'm going to say I want the medium, and you just click on the small, medium, or large for the image that you want. It's going to drop that image in there for you with the appropriate attributes. And so it's going to call back to itself as far as it being a plugin. I tend to delete that, but I leave in the call out to the actual picture owner, because it's not nice to delete their attribute. I'm going to just click enter to get that down on one line now. You can see that it also will link out to the site owner's either a higher resolution version of their image. Sometimes it will link over to the site owner's portfolio. It kind of varies from picture to picture, but the point is it's putting in the appropriate copyright information for the image that you are borrowing from this user who has designated that it is free to use, and CompFight has already analyzed that database of images for you, so you don't have to go do an image search on Google or any other search engine provider and try to find that type of photography. So again, that's all you have to do to get an image in line. Place your cursor where you want it, and then either use your Add Media or your CompFight button to get your photo in there. There's a question about the featured image not appearing. Is there a size limit? I don't know off the top of my head, so we'll walk through that process for this blog post as well, and we'll take a look at that. But just looking down the right side rail for the blog post, you can see it's pretty similar to what we had for pages with a couple new additions. So there's a format option in here. You guys are free to play around with this to see what the different options do. I've never used anything but standard, so I don't know what the other options will look like if you check one of those. You have the ability here to create your categories, as I discussed about earlier. There's between blog post pages and website pages. This is where you can pick your existing categories if you created them, or to create a new category if you have not created any. You can also create tags here, and you just type in the one that you want, separated obviously by commas, and then put the word tag in there. So maybe I want cupcake to be one of my words, and teaching, because I'm teaching you guys about blogs. So we'll say add, and those are now my tags on my blog post page. This editorial metadata, I believe, is because I have a plugin turned on that I was testing, and then we get into the featured image. So again, you click that featured image button, and you can either upload something from your desktop or use something that's already been uploaded to your site. And this image is huge, so I'm definitely going to scale this down. Let's see. So let's say we want this to be 700 pixels wide. It's automatically scaling it for me, so I'll say scale. You do have the ability to restore the original image size if you would like to. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. Click back. So now I can see my new image dimensions, and then I have all of those same fields as before. I can have title and caption filled in if I would like, but the important one is that alt text. So here it says, a patron views an art installation at the Brady Art Gallery. So I'm happy with that alt tag. I'm going to go ahead and just say set featured image. It does not look like there is a limitation as far as the file size. So if you aren't seeing your image show up, we can work one-on-one to see why, but just double check the image file itself, making sure that it's the appropriate file type, which I believe it supports PNG, JPEG, GIF, and those might be the only options. But if that's not working for you, one-on-one, you and I can actually talk about it and see what may be going on as to why it's not displaying your image. So then just like we had with the website page we created previously, we have that publish option, and it does ask you here, do you want to publish immediately with your blog post pages? You can post date or predate them. So if this was a blog post where I said, you know what, I actually wanted to show like this happened back in January, I can change that to be a January date, or I can plan ahead and say this blog post needs to go live on some date in March. But I'm going to say that we can publish immediately and click my publish button. And just like before, we get the confirmation that the post has been published, so I'm going to go ahead and click View Post. And so I've got my Blogs 101 blog post page. I've got my title here, me as the person, and then today's date, the ability to leave a comment, and then because I'm logged into the back end of the site, I also have this edit link here. I've got my subhead here, my paragraph text, the image that I placed inline, and then again that information as far as when it was published, who the author is, my tags this time, and another ability to edit that post. We also have the comment box down here at the very bottom, and again, because I'm logged in, this message that says you are the author of this entry, and the option to manage your subscriptions. And so if you're wondering now why that featured image that I set up is not showing up, that is because, and I think this is weird, but this apparently is just how it works, your featured image on a blog post page is only designed to show up in your blog feed. It's not designed to show up on the blog post page itself. And so if you want an image on your blog post page, you need to put it in line with your text. Your featured image is only going to show up in your blog post feed. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that now, unless there are any other questions before we move into that. Okay. So with the blog post page, there is a question about ordering blog posts retroactively. Yes, you can order them retroactively by changing that publish date. So again, when you publish a blog post, you can publish it immediately, or you can manually change what that blog post publication date is, and that's how it will get ordered in your blog post feed. So if I set this to be something posted in January, anything posted since then, it's going to be above it in the feed. If I had set it to publish in March, it's not going to show up at all until that date in March actually passes. So there's also a question about the comp site images button that I used. Again, that's a plugin that you have to enable, and I'll show you guys that in just a few minutes when we talk about plugins and widgets in more detail. But I already have that plugin turned in on mine, so that's why you're able to see it. So this is the home page of my site right now, and by default, all of the sites are turned on with the blog post feed as the default home page. And here's another one of those unfortunate bugs that we do have with our theme at this moment, where instead of just showing a summary with the read more link on this theme, it's actually going to show you the entire blog post in the feed at this moment. And so I have a few more blog posts that I can actually turn on so that we get a better look at how multiple posts look like in a feed. So I'm going to go ahead and publish all of those. And I'll do that by just clicking all of these ones that show that they're in draft status. And we're going to say bulk action edit. I'm going to click apply. And I'm going to change the status to published. I'm going to click update. And then I'm going to go back to my home page. And so now you can see that I've got other blog posts in here. They all have today's date. I can go in and manually change that so that they all have different dates. The one that I just created a moment ago is technically considered the oldest one, so that's why it's at the very bottom. But as you can see, the entire blog post is there, and then all of these other blog posts are in here in their entirety as well. They just happen to be short blog posts. If I, as a site owner, didn't want to have a blog feed on my home page, what I could do instead is say, I want to have a static web page serving as my home page instead. So maybe that About Online Strategy page I created earlier, maybe I want that to be my home page instead. So what I do in that case is I click on this Customize button at the top. And you'll have now a number of options available to you. And these are basically the options that you use to configure how your site is going to display for your users. The first one is your site identity, and that is this portion right here. So your site title, and then your site tagline. These are entirely optional. If you do not want these to display, you just delete the text, or you uncheck this display site title and tagline option. And you can see that when you do that, that space will just completely disappear. But as long as you have that checked in, something will display there. If you remove it, then nothing displays there. And what we often see people do when they select this option to hide the site title and tagline is they'll have their navigation at the top, and then they'll put a banner running across underneath here, and then the banner, that's where they'll actually have the site title for the site. So either way, it works. It's up to you how you'd like to do that. The next option is colors. You can see we've got the GW blue in here, and that is pre-selected here. Again, going back to accessibility and also going back to branding for the university. Please don't change this unless you're sure that the color that you're using is going to pass accessibility standards. I will be providing that information to you in the follow-up resources. If this is an official site for an academic or administrative unit, please don't change this color to something outside of GW's color palette. We want to make sure that we're branding these sites in a way where people can trust, yes, this is an official university website, and I don't have to wonder about that because it's hot pink. Hot pink is not a color in our official color palette. So we want to make sure that we're staying within the official color palette of the university for any official website for an academic unit or for an administrative unit. That's already taken care of for you out of the box, but if you are going to customize that, use the colors that are in our color palette, which I will be providing to you in the follow-up resources. The header image, this is what I was just referring to earlier. If you wanted to have a banner running across the top of your site, and I think that this one should work, so I'm just going to say select, skip cropping. And so there we have the banner running across the top of our website. And I have my blog feed running down there. And this is where I was saying some people will create a banner that's got text on top of it to indicate who owns this website as opposed to using the site title and tagline. Background image is another one that you can use. It will overwrite whatever color you have going on here and put a background image in there instead. So that's something we see people use to customize their websites and give them a little more personality and uniqueness. The menu section, I'm going to hold off on going through this one until we get a little further along, and I'll show you guys how you can use your menus. But you can see that as you're creating pages, they do tend to automatically show up in the navigation, but there is a way to actually structure that in a more thoughtful, curated way as opposed to just letting every page that you create show up in your navigation. So I'll show you guys how you can do that in a moment. The widgets, depending on the theme, you're going to have different widget sections available to you. You just click on the one that you want to use at that time for this particular theme, which, by the way, this is the Tiny Framework theme, and this is the theme that's automatically turned on for all sites when you first get it. And I'll show you how to switch to other themes in a moment. But for Tiny Framework, you have one sidebar to display all of your widgets. So your main widget there, your main sidebar, excuse me, that will show you, you can see here, these are the different widgets that are currently enabled, and as I roll over them, you can even see a little box kind of show up to show which one I'm hovering over at that moment. You can grab them and drag them to a different order if you want them to be in a different order, and you will get a live preview here showing you what that new layout looks like. And you can add new widgets by clicking on that box and adding new things to your sidebar. The thing to know with your widgets, they do carry over to all of the pages in your site. So at least to my knowledge at this time, there's no way to have a specific sidebar show up on your home page and a different set of sidebars showing up on the individual pages in your site. It seems to be a single sidebar that propagates throughout your entire website. So keep that in mind as you're deciding what to put into your sidebar widget. Then you can see for this particular theme, you also have 3 different footer widget areas. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, if you are on the main blogs.gw.edu website, this is the tiny framework theme, by the way. Down at the bottom, these 3 text sections that you see right here, these are the 3 footer widgets that are being referenced right here. And then there's also a footer copyright widget area. I believe what that does is down here underneath this blue bar, it will put whatever text that you place into this widget or whatever you put into this widget, it will display it underneath this. So that's what those different widget areas do. And if it hasn't been clear yet what the widgets do, they allow you to customize the layout on your page, so you can add for plugins into those widgets. And those plugins are functionality. Sometimes it's an archive or a roll of your recent comments, and if it's some other kind of plugin like a calendar or something like that, you can put that in there instead, but the widget allows you to actually place it on your page. So that's what those do, and I think I just saw a comment come through. So someone says, I'm currently on my dashboard and I don't see an option for customizing on the left sidebar. The way that you actually get to this customize feature is to look at your home page. This is the best way that I've seen do it, actually. Go to the home page of your website, and then that customize link is actually in that black admin bar at the very top. So once you click on that, you'll be able to see the options that we're running through right now. And we looked at widgets. Oh, and then static front page. So this is where you determine whether or not you want to have a feed of your blog post running on your home page, or if you want to use a static message. And so again, I said earlier, I want to change this from having a blog feed to having a static message from that About Online Strategy page that I created earlier. So to do that, I just click the a static page option for what the front page displays, and then I have to actually select what that page is going to be. It is automatically going to pull something and place it there. It just so happens that, oh, you know what, no, I just have 2 similar titles. So I'm going to say here I want it to be the About Online Strategy page, and then now it changes to the actual one I had before. So now About Online Strategy, this is my home page. This is not going to change no matter how many blog posts I create in this website. This will always be my home page. If I want this message to change, I need to edit this page itself, and then it will change on the home page. If you wanted to save the changes that you've done, you just click Save and Publish. If you wanted to revert and go back to what you had before, you just X out, and then it's not going to save anything that you've done. I'm going to go ahead and say Save and Publish. And then once I close this, I'm going to do a refresh just really for the sake of it. But now I can see all of those changes that I made as far as the order of my sidebar widgets, the content that's on my home page, the header banner, all of that has been saved. And this is now my website, what my website looks like. And so you may be saying to yourself, well, I want to have my blog feed somewhere within my site. How do I get to it now since I've got a static message on my home page? If you want to do that, what you need to do is, and I hope I do this right because I've only done this a handful of times, but you create a page, and I'm just going to call this Latest Headlines. You can just call it Blog Post Page if you would like. You don't have to put any text. I'm going to say Publish, and I'm going to go back to look at my site, and I've got this Latest Headlines page, which is just going to be a blank page for now. There's nothing there. I'm going to click on that Customize option, go back to that static front page one, and then for my post page, which you can see is blank, I'm going to pick Latest Headlines. And now this page is serving as the landing page for my blog feed. So that's how you can set it up so that your home page has one thing showing on it and a different page is serving as the blog post feed instead. And I'm really glad that that worked, because if it didn't, I would have been a little embarrassed. So are there any other questions on the difference between blog post pages, blogs, regular website pages, how to kind of manipulate your home page, anything like that? It says, can you change the archives header on the blog post header? And I'm assuming that we're talking about what's going on over here in that sidebar. And the answer is yes. So if you go back into that customize option and you go to your widgets, and again, those are in the main sidebar. You can see right here it says archive. When you expand that, you can see there's a title field here. If you don't put anything in here, it's going to default to that archives as the title. So you can put something else here like older post, which is a terrible title, but that's what I'm going to put. And you can see now that that's changed. And you can do that for any one of these. If you don't like the default title, you can put something else in there. I don't know what it would actually be for search, but again, for recent comments, you can say, you know, join the conversation. Again, a terrible title, but you can see that it does change. And again, you can do that for all of them. Someone is saying, I still don't see the customizing options when I select pages. And I hope I'm understanding what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get to the options that I was just manipulating, if you are on your dashboard, what you need to do is hover over your site's name and then click on Visit Site. And then in this black admin bar, you'll go to this Customize option. And this is where you'll get to these different configurations. And this will only work when you're looking at the front end of your website. It's not going to work when you're looking at the back end of the website. Does that answer the question? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to go ahead and get into the plugins and widgets for the site now, because I've mentioned them a bunch of times, kind of alluded to what they do and how they work, but I actually want to show that to you guys in a couple of specific plugins as well. So for the plugins and widgets, we're going to go to our dashboard, and there's actually a plugin section here, and then widgets are underneath the appearance section. But I'm going to start with plugins. Plugins enhance the functionality of your website. So let's say you have a podcast and you want to include your podcast on your website. There's a plugin for that. And that is going to be right here. Sorry, that's Pull Daddy. Where's the podcast one? Oh no, it used to be in there. It's still there. I'll talk about ComFite Safe Images, or you know what? The problem might be that it's inactive. No, it's not there. So this is one of the bummers about this being a vendor-controlled service. Sometimes a plugin or a widget or something like that will get deprecated, and we find out the hard way when we go looking for it and it's not there anymore. So I'll take a look to see why that particular plugin is no longer there. But when you first look at your plugins, they are all deactivated by default. So you actually have to go to this admin and activate them. So you can see here I've got the majority of mine turned on, and they all say deactivate as the option. However, if I did not have one turned on, I would have this activate button instead. So you do need to go to the plugin section, which again is going to be just underneath the appearance option in your dashboard menu. Find the plugins that you think you might want to use, and then click on that activate button. Once you click on that activate button, you'll start seeing new things show up both in your dashboard menu and also on your pages. So we saw that ComFite button on my pages because I have the ComFite plugin turned in. Because I have the Divi Builder plugin turned on, I can see in my dashboard menu that there's actually a new link for the Divi Builder settings that I can go in here and make some edits to. So you'll see new basically links and menu options show up throughout your site based off of however that particular plugin might work. and that's where you actually will manage how that plugin is going to work on your site specifically, and then display for your website users. Um, once you have the plugins turned on that you want to use, and you start seeing them show up, so for instance, I'll go back to creating a new page, and we're going to use that Divi Builder plugin because that's a really popular one that people like to use. Let me just respond to this one comment here. So because I have that Divi Builder plugin turned on, I now have this big purple Divi Builder button. And I want to go through this with you guys because, again, it's a very popular plugin. And what it allows you to do is really enhance the layout on a singular page. And it's a one-off thing that only will affect that one page. It's not going to affect your whole site. But it allows you to do some really dynamic things on the page itself. So I'm going to call this page my Divi Builder 101 page. And then the next thing I'm going to do is click the Use Divi Builder button. And you can see immediately that my text editor has changed. Now I can always go back to that default text editor. It's going to display this warning for you that says all of the content that you created in Divi Builder will be lost. Do you wish to proceed? And what that means is if you have been using the Divi Builder plugin and then decide, you know what, this page has gotten crazy, I just want to go back to having a simple text page, so we're going to use the default editor, everything that you've done in Divi Builder is going to be wiped out. So you have to think about that before you really, kind of go to town using Divi Builder to set up a page and then change your mind and want to do something different. The only exception is that if you already have text in here before you start using that Divi Builder page, that text will be restored. That simple text will be restored. But anything new that was created specifically within Divi Builder, that's all going to be gone. So I'm going to click that Divi Builder button again, and the way that Divi Builder is designed to work is that it's sort of like creating a table, basically, and each table cell can have something different in it. So you start out with a single row and a single column. And then you have the option to insert additional columns within that row. You can leave it as a single column, or you can say I want 2 50/50s, or 3 split into thirds, 4 split into quarters, or I want 2 that are kind of 2/3 and 1/3, all the way down to what you see here. And you basically just put whatever you want into the different columns. So I'm going to do a 3/4 and 1/4. In this main one, I'm going to say, you know what, I just want some simple text. And I think I might have gone a little bit fast. The next thing that happens when you have these different columns already designated is you then click the Insert Modules button. And these are the different modules that you can add within each cell of your Divi Builder page. So you can see there are quite a few options here to pick from. And so just be careful that you're not going too crazy with what you put in there. Once you click one, you'll then get into the options to configure what it looks like and to actually add your content. So this is a simple text one. I'm just going to put some simple text in there. So I will copy this and paste that on in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just say save and exit, because that's really all you need to do. And then I'm going to go to my other side, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want this to be a timer or a counter or a call to action. You just really kind of need to figure out what you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to choose call to action option here, and I'll say visit the GW website. And I'm going to link this to the main site. It's not within my website, so I'm going to say open it in a new tab. And then I'm going to repeat that because this is the actual button text. And I'm going to leave the rest of these options at their default, but you can manipulate these to be whatever you want them to be. And then I'm going to say save and exit. So now I've got my text and I've got my call to action button. If I publish this and I view my page, I've got my Divi Builder 101 title, the text I had in there, and then here's my button that title that I put in there display, but then I also have my button, and you can see it looks a little wonky because I do have that sidebar going on here. So those are the things that you need to keep in mind whenever you're using the Divi Builder plugin, is how will the full layout of your page be affected if you're also using the sidebar there. Is it still going to look as nice as you would want it to, or are things going to look a little wonky as they do here? Maybe this isn't the best module for me to use. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to click this Edit Page button here at the top. And I'm going to say, you know what, this didn't work for me. I'm going to delete that module, and I'm going to either use something else or even leave it empty if you don't want to use it at all. That's totally up to you. If I then wanted to continue adding new things to the page, I can do a couple of things. I can insert more modules, and they will also be using this 3/4 and 1/4 layout, or I can add a new row and say this new row is going to have a completely different layout, and then go through the process again of inserting modules, so on and so forth. So, I can say again, I want to have just some simple text here, grab a paragraph, paste that in, save and exit, update my page, and then view my page. And so now I no longer have that weird button in there. We do have that empty space though, and then I've just got my text. But again, that Divi Builder just lets you really make that page kind of dynamic as far as the different types of things that you can show on there, and it allows you to edit all of those things within the text editor of the page without having to leave this page and create a bunch of different things outside of the context of this page. So that is how your plugins work, and that's specifically how your Divi Builder plugin works. The widgets that will display, I'm going to go to Appearance and then Widgets. So as you turn on your plugins, you might have new widget options that display, and when you go to this widget section, this is another place where you can see what's showing up where. So as you turn on plugins, you might get some of those new functionalities showing up here, and you can just grab something and drag it over here to be in the particular section that you want it to be in. So if you're using the Google Search plugin, which I do have turned on, you can grab that, drag it to one of the footer areas. I have a couple of other ones on here that aren't set up right now, so I'm not going to pull them over here. But this is just a drag and drop interface, so whatever you want to show up in this particular section, you just grab its widget, drag it to where you want it to be, and then drop it. And I dragged this custom HTML one here to highlight to you all that if you want to have a Twitter feed or some sort of social media embed, you're going to want to use this custom HTML widget. Grab the embed link from whatever service that is, paste it into the custom HTML content area, and that's how you'll get that Twitter feed showing up, either in your sidebar or, as I just put it in the footer, it would show up there as well. The thing to know about using this interface over the customized one that we were using earlier, this is immediate. So when you're in that customized one, you could kind of get a live preview of how things were going to look. But if you place something into a widget area from this interface, it actually immediately shows up for your website users. So I tend to not use this one because you don't get the live preview, but your website visitors are seeing it right away. So keep that in mind whenever you're in this section, how that works. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else before we move into changing the themes up. Are there any questions about anything that I've just walked through with the plugins and the widgets? Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and talk about themes. And to do that, I'm going to go back to my home page. And so again, this is the Tiny Framework theme. It was selected because we recognize that it could be really helpful in having just a fairly plain website, like a basic website, basically not plain, but a basic website that just allows you to either have, a blog feed or some static pages, and just immediately allows you to move quickly on standing up a small website to fit that need. Now, if you wanted to have a different design for your website, it's really easy to change from theme to theme. And the way that that works, I'm going to hover over my site title here, and I'm going to use this shortcut link to go to the theme section, but I'm going to open that in a new tab over here because I want to be able to quickly go back and forth to show you guys how that works. So these are the 3 themes that are available again. Tiny Framework is the one that's turned on for everybody. Then you have Ward, which is a little more modern. It has this sort of edge-to-edge design. I'm going to go ahead and click the Activate button for that theme. And back on my website's homepage, I'm going to click Refresh, and you can see my website changed. And that's really all it takes to change from theme to theme. Now, the thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that the different content areas are designed to be in different places from theme to theme. So even though you don't lose any content, it's going to move to wherever it's supposed to be per this theme's design and coding. So I've still got my my homepage showing up here, but I've got some other things that weren't really showing before because they didn't exist in that other theme. So if I click my Customize button now, and I see my site identity field and such are empty, but I do see my site title here. That's actually not the site title. Your site title on this theme does still show up at the top over here. So does the tagline. They both show here. What you're actually seeing here is something that's unique to this theme called the jumbo headline. And so when people elect to use this theme, what we often see them do is what you see demonstrated here. They will put their site title here, and sometimes they use a tagline, sometimes they don't. We've seen them do it either way, and it works pretty well. And they just choose to use this as the site title as well. It does carry over from page to page. However, if you're not using it, if you delete that text, that field actually just collapses and it goes away. So it's entirely at your discretion whether or not you want to use it. You do have that site title and tagline field that will display up here at the top if you choose to use that instead. This theme also gives you some layout options for, excuse me, if you have sidebars where they're going to display. So if you have your content showing in the left sidebar or the right, or if you have no sidebars, and how the main content for your blog post page will display as well. So these are configurations that are specific to this theme, and you'll just play around with them to see what works best for your website. You still have the option for selecting background color here. Again, we've got some colors already selected per the GW brand palette as well as accessibility standards. Here's another one that's specific to this theme, which is posts and the types of information that you can display on your blog post page. So you've got displaying categories, whether you display the author, the date, and the comment count. You can have a background image on this one. To be honest, I've never seen what it looks like because, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think that that is an option that really works because you have a full background color selected, and you don't, the background image doesn't replace it. So you can't even see whatever background images you have in there so long as there's always a color in place. We need to go over menus, but you do have your menu options here as well. There's no menu set right now, so it's just kind of pulling in some defaults. And then again, you have your widget options. This theme has 2 widget areas, but this particular page does not display them. So I believe those will be available on the individual pages instead. And then you have that same static front page option where you can say if you want all of your blog posts displaying on your home page, or if you just want a static page. So right now we just have the static page showing, and it looks pretty plain Jane because this particular theme doesn't support a header banner like the last one did. It's really about having big chunks of text as opposed to having images showing. So if I change this now to say my latest post, it should change to my blog feed instead. I'm going to click Save and Publish. And we're going to go check and see why my blog posts aren't showing up, because I think they're all published. Yeah, my blog posts are published. I'm not sure why it's not showing them. So I will have to have that looked at. But we should be seeing my blog posts right now as opposed to a blank screen. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with this theme that I haven't shown to you guys. I do believe that's everything. Are there any questions on this theme? I know it's not really acting right for us right now, but in general, the majority of the changes that you'll be able to affect will always be under that customize option from the site title, jumbo headline, so on and so forth. And again, the options that you see here, some will be specific to the theme, some of them will be carryovers no matter what theme you select. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and back on my dashboard here in the theme section, I'm going to show you this last one, which is the white theme. So the white theme is the only one of the three that supports an animated banner section as well as a logo in the header. So now that I've selected that theme, I'm going to refresh my home page again. And again, we can see my website change. So we've got my tag up here and my title just beneath it in this case. And then we've got my navigation showing up here. It's trying to load the rotating banner, but I'm not sure if I actually have anything configured for that space, so that's why it looks like that. The way that it treats blog posts is a little bit different. As opposed to showing a summary, it actually shows you a grid layout for the different blog post pages. I do have some banners in there. That's nice. But it shows you a grid, image grid layout for the different blog posts that you have in your site. And so because of that, this is really only going to work if you always have a main image on your blog post. That's something to keep in mind. If you choose to use the white theme with the blog post as your home page, you really do need to have your blog post have a featured image on each one. Otherwise, you're going to get these broken image icons displaying. You get two sidebars on this theme, and my understanding is that it's always going to show two sidebars. So if you don't designate something for that second sidebar, it's going to default to what you see here, which is the archives, the meta tag, and the search box. So keep that in mind as well if you choose to use this theme. You can see that my rotating banner is definitely working. It does not require your images to all be the same size. So if they are different sizes, it's going to jump up and down to display the full image as necessary. For whatever the image is that you've elected to put into each slide. And then if you go to your customize options, we'll see the basic setting options here is just your site title and tagline that we had before. If you would like to use a logo instead, you would just click that select image option, pick your logo file, and put that in there instead. I don't have a logo file now, and I'm not going to go through the process of uploading one. Again, if you're in an academic or an administrative unit standing up an official website for the university, reach out to marketing and creative services and ask them to create the logo for you through their project request form. Those logos will be created at no cost for you, and you don't want to just create one in-house on your own, because we want to make sure that they are following the visual identity standards and guidelines for how logos at the university, official logos at the university, are supposed to be constructed, from font size, clear space, font family, use of the monogram, all of those things. There are specific rules for all of that, and Marketing and Creative Services is prepared to make sure that whatever logo is created for you adheres to those rules. And again, that is at no cost. So just reach out to them and they will be happy to create that for you. We have the configurations for the main slider. So first you have to enable it and then indicate how many banners you want in the slider, and then you can actually go through the process of uploading the images for them, putting in a title and a description, which we'll display here. If you want that to link somewhere, you can also indicate that here. Colors, you can do your background colors again. Obviously, I've got a background image going on, so that's why we see that instead, which is right here. Social icons on this particular theme, it does allow you to have your social media icons displaying up here in the header area, and all you have to do is just indicate what social media account it is and then put the link to that appropriate profile, and it will then automatically put that icon up there for you that's linked over to your account. We are going to talk about menus in just a minute. You have your widget options. Again, on this theme you have these two sidebars here, and then it looks like you also have 3 footer widget areas. It works exactly as it did as I showed you before. You just drag what you want in the order that you want it to be and add them by clicking on this button and then dragging them to wherever you want them. So if you wanted an audio player, you would just click that and get that over there. I'm not going to actually do an audio player. And then again, you can indicate if you want to have your latest post showing or if you want that to be a static front page, which if I change that, you can see that all of those broken image icons are now gone, and I just got the static message from my About Online Strategy page that I created previously displaying instead. Again, you click that Save and Publish button to actually commit your changes, and that now becomes your home page. So I want to talk about menus now. Before I do that, I'm going to change back to the Tiny Framework theme just because I feel like it's the easiest one to absorb when you're looking at how navigation works for the first time. So I've switched back now to the Tiny Framework theme, and if we go back to my home page, we'll see that back activated. And then I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to hover over my site name and then go to this menu section. So with your menus, if you have nothing designated as your menu, it is just going to automatically kind of put pages that you create as you go along into your navigation bar. So what you need to do is actually to create a menu. So I'm just going to call this Main Menu. And then you click that Create Menu button. And then once you've done that, you can then go to this left sidebar here where it wants to know what do you want in your menu. And it's going to have the Pages section open by default, but you do have these other options as well. Some of these will be based off of plugins that you turned on. So Formidable Tags, this is based off of a plugin that I had turned on earlier. So just keep an eye on what you have available to you. And then you just check the box for the ones that you want in your navigation. And then click Add to Menu, and you'll see them listed over here. You can change what those menu labels are going to be just by affecting the text. You can also remove it entirely, and you can drag and drop them just by grabbing one and moving it to whichever page you want it to be. And you can also say, oh, you know what, this is actually supposed to be a page for this one by dragging it in just a little bit to the right. So it really gives you a lot of options. Something I do want to point out, the only things that you're going to see listed here as options for your navigation are pages that are actually published to the front end. If you have a page in draft, it's not going to be an option to be a page in your navigation. And so I actually have a number of pages that I created ahead of time. So I'm going to go to those, and it's asking me, you made some changes, but you didn't save it. Are you sure you want to leave? I'm just going to say yes. And then I'm just going to publish these really quickly. I think that one's already published, and then we'll do this one. So I'm just quickly going to say publish for all of these. And it looks like we just got another question come through in the chat. I'll take a look at that in just a moment. So now that I have published these pages, and I'll publish this one too, just for fun. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. Publish. I'm going to go back to Appearance and then Menus. And we can see my main menu section is empty because I didn't save any of those changes I did before. So now I'm going to go in here, publish these pages. Oh, I'm sorry, not publish them, but add them to my menu. I'm going to say About Me is going to be the first one. We'll do latest headlines with my blog feed on it as the second one. Contact can be a subpage to About Me. And then, yeah, we'll say, you know what, I'm happy with this, except I want this to just say Divi Builder. I don't want it to say Divi Builder 101. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this custom links section over here with the different options that you have for putting items into your navigation. And I'm going to grab the website address for my website, and I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to say the link text is home. Then I'm going to add that to my menu. There is no home link by default. So you do have to add that manually if you would like it. If you're using the site title, that will link back to your homepage, but if you're not, you really don't have any way for people to get back to your homepage. So we always recommend using that custom link option and creating a simple link back to your homepage. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save Menu. And now this is now the a menu that I have available in my website to use as the primary navigation on my site. And let me just check this chat for a moment just to make sure it's not a question that will be good for everybody. So the question is, can we redirect a page in WordPress to another web page? So for instance, if I wanted to have an events page but have it directed to the main website calendar, is that possible? Oh, I already answered it. Yeah, you can use custom links to do that. I don't recommend doing that, though, and that goes back to accessibility. You never want your navigation to link to something that's not in your own website. If you are using if you can't see the screen and you're using like a screen reader to read the screen for you, and you know you're going through that website's navigation, and you know, quote unquote, click on a link, and suddenly you're on a completely different website, you have to start from the very top and then work your way down to figure out, okay, what's this new website I'm on? How does this work? Is this website accessible? Is this going to work for me? My computer's trying to do updates. So it's actually really inaccessible for somebody, so you never want to do that. It's very disorienting, mostly for people who need to use assistive devices for some reason. But it can be jarring for anybody, even if they don't have you know, an accessibility issue that they're dealing with, to think that they're clicking on a link within your website and then suddenly end up somewhere entirely different. Instead, what you want to do, if you have to link to something outside of your own website, use your widgets and your sidebars to link out to that kind of stuff. Place the link within the text of your page, something along those lines. You never want to use your navigation to link to somebody else's website, to a third-party application, even if it's one that you own and manage. Your navigation link should be navigating people to content within your website. So I hope that answers the question. I think I might have answered it a little more than you anticipated. So going back to navigation, now that I've created my main menu, I'm going to go back to visit the home page of my site, and sometimes it will automatically put it in there, sometimes it won't. If you don't see it showing up for you right away, all you need to do, and we can see that it did put all those pages in there because I published them, but they're not in the order that I wanted. My Divi Builder page is still showing up with the full title. So then what you're going to do is click on that Customize link. I told you guys you're going to use this a lot to adjust how your page, your website looks. And then we're going to go to that menu section. And we can see I've got my main menu here and my social media links, but we're going to go to menu locations. And we're going to say for my primary menu, which is always going to be this top bar here, I want to display the main menu that I just created. So now I've got home, I've got about me with my contact as a subpage, latest headlines, research, and Divi Builder. And then you'll see that there's also, and this is not always true for all of the themes, there's a social links menu. Some themes will support having social media links show up as well. We saw on the, I believe it was the white theme, where you could have those icons up at the top, and it had a designated section within the customized menu for that. But for instance, for this theme, it actually shows them, I believe, in the footer. And so I always recommend just go ahead and create a menu that's got your social media links already set and ready to go. And then if that social links option is available, you can indicate that you want your social media links in there. And when you put those in, I don't know where they will display. We're going to say save and publish. I believe these are supposed to show in the footer. Oh, there they are. So then I've got my social media links, the icons displaying here, and they're linking over to all of those items that I created menu links for. And the way that I did that, again, that was under the menu section. I'll open that in a new tab. And you know, earlier I created the social media links menu, and you guys can see here I just use custom links for all of them. So this option here, I linked over to whatever the account was. For the text I said Facebook or Twitter, whatever the case might be, and I just titled it social media links. And then again, on my home page itself, when I was in the menu section for customizing the page, I had that ready to go. So I just said, in my menus, With my social media links section, I want that social media links menu that I created with all of those custom links. And once you save that, it displays in the designated area that this theme has said I will show social media links. Are there any other questions? Okay. So then the last thing we'll talk about is just, what are your options for technical support? And again, this is a self-serve platform, so the expectation is that we provide you guys access to a website, but then it's in your hands to put your content in there, get your images in there, stand it up, turn it on and advertise it to your end users. But we know that, some people maybe have never used WordPress before, and so you're going to run into some issues, and you are not entirely on your own in that case. There is a support page on the GW Blogs website. So if you go to that page on the site, you'll see that there are links linking out to tutorials for things that are basic, such as logging into the service, the difference between posts and pages, so on and so forth, as well as some advanced topics such as how to manage comments, images, audio, video, and other media, so on and so forth. So definitely use this support page to answer your questions. There's also a link over to the complete EduBlogs user guide. This thing is awesome. I use it all the time when I'm running into questions or roadblocks with different plugins, or to see if a plugin has been turned off as well. So definitely recommend coming to use this as well. One caveat, this is a comprehensive guide that the vendor has created for everything that is in their system, but all of that's not going to apply to you guys. So you might see some plugins in here, well, you will see some plugins in here that are not available for you to use. And that, again, that goes back to GW policies that might limit the use of that. So for instance, anything that's e-commerce based where you might want to take some payment from somebody, we didn't turn that on because that requires a level of security that the system is just not rated for. So if you happen to be running through the EduBlogs guide, you see something where you're like, I don't see that available in my dashboard, feel free to email onlinestrategy@gwu.edu. We'll let you know whether or not it's something we turned on for you guys and why. And we can kind of figure out what the best option is for whatever your use case might be. Same thing with themes. There are a lot more themes, obviously, available than we actually turned on and customized. And that's just going to come down to us, rolling out more to you guys as time goes on. But we also wanted to make sure that the themes that were turned on were accessible out of the box and were optimized for mobile use. So if somebody's looking at your website on a phone or a tablet, it's still going to be usable for them even if they're not on a desktop. But yeah, the EduBlogs user guide is, in my opinion, a lifesaver. So that was option number 2. And then the third option is limited in-person support at NCS's office hours. And we have 2 ways that you can actually attend quote-unquote office hours. The first one is in person every week from every Thursday. From 10 till noon. We are in Hall of Government, room 103, which is a computer lab, so you don't have to bring a laptop with you. You can just sit with somebody, kind of let them know what it is you're trying to do, and they'll help you out as best as they can. We also offer virtual office hours. These are 15-minute sessions that are available from 11 to noon every day, so you can register for one of those. Because they are 15-minute sessions, you really do need to come with a specific thing that it is that you're trying to do. If you just say, I need to learn how to use blogs, we're not going to be able to do that in 15 minutes. But if you come and say, I was trying to get my feed to show up on this page and it didn't work, that's something that we can help you troubleshoot within 15 minutes. So those are your 2 options for getting in-person support for the blog system. I know that a lot of people out of habit will create an IT support ticket. If you do that, that's fine. It's just going to get routed to our team anyway, and we'll, most likely direct you to office hours, or we'll work with you over email. But again, your best option is to either use the EduBlog user guide, email onlinestrategy@gwu.edu, or go to in-person office hours or register for a virtual office hour session, and we'll be happy to help you. So that is the full agenda. Does anybody have any questions for me? And feel free to put them in the chat or to even take yourself off of mute at this point if you'd like to just ask it over the phone. All right, I'm going to take that quietness as a no, and I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining me today. I will be sharing this recording as soon as it's available, as well as the additional resources that I mentioned throughout the presentation. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to help. Thank you all.